I would love to introduce you to our next group of speakers. We have Arturo Rago, who is our design education lead for NonProfit, and they'll be presenting on how to create powerful change campaigns to inspire action, followed by Robin King, who's our head of social impact here, and they'll be speaking to defining clear goals to achieve your big vision for change. Over to you, Arturo.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this Canva Create session on creating change campaigns to inspire action. If you're a nonprofit and you're working on a campaign right now, this is really the right place to be. But before we get started, I just want you to know that we have designed a great workbook for you. It includes plenty of exercises to get your creative juices flowing, to help you think through your next campaign. So if you want to use it to follow along the presentation, you're most welcome to. So just go to this bit.ly link and grab a free copy of your workbook. Okay, so just a quick introduction on myself so that you know who you're going to be spending the next 30 minutes of your life with. My name is Arturo. I'm a designer and a design educator here at Canva. I work on the design school team, and I specifically focus on helping nonprofits unlock their creativity and their design potential using Canva. And if you've been watching other sessions from Canva Create, or if you're already a Canva user, you know that here at Canva, we have a very bold, crazy mission. We want to empower everyone, everywhere, to design. But there's also a second part to our mission, which is particularly relevant for nonprofits all over the world. And that is that we want to do the most good that we can. We really want to use Canva as a force for good in the world. And we do this in a number of ways, but one way in particular in which we do it is that we make Canva Pro absolutely free for nonprofits. So if you're a nonprofit, a social impact organization, or a health organization, you can apply for a free Canva Pro for nonprofits account and unlock all the pro features that come with Canva Pro. So if this is something that's interesting to you, go to this link, canva.com/nonprofits. On this page, you will find all the information that you need to apply, from the eligibility guidelines for your country all the way to the application form. And the process only takes a couple of minutes. So please go and check this website if you're using Canva for your nonprofit. And currently we have over 150,000 nonprofits on our nonprofit plan. And this is something that makes us really happy and really proud, because we really, really believe that change starts with visual communication. Graphic design, visual communication is really a powerful way for us to project ourselves into a new future, to imagine the world that we want to live in. And so change can really start with design. And as we say, if you can see it, you can be it. Or in the words of Antoinette Carroll, who's a social entrepreneur and an equity designer, the world as we know it has been designed. If we look at the world today, all the problems that we're currently confronted with, all the way from systemic oppression to climate change, all of these problems are design problems. And the good news is that we can redesign them. We can redesign the world. And this is exactly what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to talk about creating campaigns to inspire action and make a change in the world. So just a little sneak preview of what we're going to be talking about today. In the first part, we're going to cover planning. So planning is really a huge part of a successful campaign. In the second part of the session, we're going to essentially go into Canva and see how Canva can help you put your campaign together and bring it to life. And in the third part of today's session, I'm going to be sharing a few tools and a few extra resources for your nonprofit so that you can keep learning and improving your design with Canva. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of all of this, I thought we can actually start with a bit of inspiration. We're talking about creating campaigns to inspire people to take action and make a difference in the world. And so to do this, I want to take you to the island of Palau. It's a tiny island in the South Pacific. Actually, it's the 13th smallest country in the entire world. And as you can imagine, it's a beautiful place. Tourism plays a really important part in the country's economy, but it's also a blessing in disguise. It's a blessing, obviously, because it keeps the economy going, but it's also a bit of a curse because of the environmental impact that all these hundreds of thousands of tourists actually cause on the island of Palau. And so the Palau Legacy Project designed this amazing, really, really inspiring campaign to reconcile these two things: tourism, the benefits of tourism on the one hand, but also the need to protect the environment on the other. So let's watch this video and get inspired with this amazing campaign.
Now, if you're heading to the Pacific island of Palau, you'll be signing up to a new pledge.
Human impact on Earth's environment is one of the biggest challenges facing the world today. The small island nation of Palau was feeling these impacts acutely. Tourists were damaging reefs, littering oceans, and poaching protected species. But how could a small local population with limited resources police the high volume of visitors? What if we made the tourists police themselves? Introducing the Palau Pledge, a first-of-its-kind immigration policy for good. All visitors now need to sign an environmental pledge to gain admittance into Palau. Stamped into the passport of international arrivals, the pledge is a formal promise to Palau's children.
Children of Palau,
I take this pledge
to preserve and protect your beautiful and unique island home.
To implement this policy, government, the tourist industry and citizens were brought together. A new visa entry stamp was designed and issued in multiple languages, and immigration laws were permanently changed.
The joy that comes with a pledge is the recognition that, hey, I can make a difference.
But we didn't stop at the passport stamp. We redesigned the tourism experience via a website, an in-flight film, a passport insert, local education, business accreditation, signage, penalties, and collateral. Launched at the UN, the Palau Pledge has been praised by international leaders and groups. Influencers helped inspire people to take the pledge online in solidarity with Palau.
Are you already seeing tourists behaving differently?
The awareness level is very high.
Leonardo DiCaprio has been quick to endorse the pledge.
The reaction on social media has been widespread.
The Palau Pledge has raised global awareness of the responsibility this generation has to the next. But its biggest impact is local, in Palau.
I hope my children can see the beautiful place as I see today.
This is an example of how a well-executed campaign can really bring about lasting change, changing not only people's mindsets, but also people's behaviors through design. So with this, let's go to our first section today, which is exactly how to plan a successful campaign. And planning is super important because, as you all know, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. So what's the best way to approach a campaign? What's the best way to think about it? I usually think of a campaign as a bit of a journey. And there are 4 key steps, 4 key milestones along the way. It all starts with your goals, setting clear goals. Then it's about developing your idea. Once we have our idea fleshed out for the campaign, then it's about developing all the great content that we want to share with the world. And last but not least, impact also plays a huge role, sharing, tracking your impact. So we're going to be taking a look at each of these 4 phases in greater detail in a second. But before we go into that, if you've only just joined, there's a great workbook that we have designed for you. It includes plenty of exercises that will actually help you put into practice all of the things that we'll be talking about in a minute. So go to this link and get your free copy of the workbook. All right, so without further ado, let's go into the first phase of our planning process, which is all about setting goals. So the questions here that we need to ask ourselves are, what is actually the change that we want to see? You know, what's the objective of the campaign? If we could visualize success, what would that change? What would that success look like? This is an incredibly important question to ask early on at the beginning of our planning process. Also, why now? You know, the time factor is absolutely important. Why are we talking about this now? Why should people care? Is there a specific event or a specific date that you can attach your campaign to? Something like Giving Tuesday, for example? And last but certainly not least, you need to know your audience very, very well. Who are you trying to get involved? Who are they? Where are they? What do they do? What drives them? What moves them to take action? How can you actually beat, apathy, get people to stop scrolling, get people to care? These are incredibly important questions that you need to ask yourselves very early on in the process. Once you've done that, it's a question of fleshing out the idea of your campaign. And now that you've got your people, your target, audience identified, then the next question is, how can they help? What do you want them to do? What's your call to action for them? Do you want them to donate money? Do you want them to volunteer? Do you want them to sign a petition or spread the word about your topic, about the issue that you're campaigning about? Do you want them to do peer-to-peer fundraising? And this is really a great moment for you to get creative and really sky's the limit when it comes to getting people involved and getting people excited about being part of the change that you're trying to create. And of course, once you've got your idea fleshed out, it's really a question now of creating your content. So you need to choose your channels. If you know where your audience is, it's incredibly important to choose the right channels that are going to enable you to target your audience. Of course, it's important to create great content, use visual storytelling as much as you can, and also stay on brand. And we're going to actually go into these points later on in the presentation. So I'm not going to dwell too much on this. And last phase, last but definitely not least, even at the beginning of the planning process, it's super important to think about impact. How are you going to track your impact? And also, how are you going to share it? Sometimes we think the sharing happens at the very end of the campaign, right? When we have all the numbers, when we have all the figures, ready to share. But actually think about impact as something that you can share all along the campaign, to keep people excited, share your milestones, share what people can actually do to get you even closer to moving the needle on the issues that you care about. And also see impact as an ongoing conversation. Your impact doesn't stop with your campaign. The campaign is actually the starting point in a much bigger process of change. So keep the conversation going, keep your community engaged. And just to go back to the Palau Pledge example that we saw a moment ago, they had very clear goals. They wanted to raise awareness about the situation in Palau, and they also wanted to change people's behavior. So they had a very clear target audience. They wanted to target all the tourists coming to Palau. And the idea was actually very creative, very simple, but very effective. They wanted visitors to essentially police themselves on the island. And they did that by getting them to sign an entry pledge. The content was obviously a multi-channel campaign. So they created plenty of collateral from the passport stamp, which is a very cool idea, all the way to a website, an in-flight film, signage, social media. So they really targeted specific channels for that campaign. And last but not least, as we saw, they had an amazing impact, 1.7 billion impressions. And more importantly than that, beyond the impressions, what that campaign did for Palau is that it kickstarted all sorts of awareness programs with schools, with businesses. So that campaign was really the starting point of a much, much broader and bigger change. So now that we have a bit of a process on how to get from our goals all the way to impact, let's go into the nitty-gritty of how we can actually bring a campaign to life in Canva. And by the way, if you're interested in all of this, and how to set big goals and communicating your impact, also the next session is incredibly useful. Robin will be sharing more about how to set a big vision for change, and she'll be going into more detail about all of this. So stay tuned for the next session as well. All right, so let's bring a campaign to life with Canva. How can we do that? There are 3 tips in particular that I want to share with you today. One is how to stay on brand. We're going to see how important branding is whenever we're putting together a campaign. Point number 2, it's super important to choose our channels, the channels that make the most sense for our campaign, and create content across all of these channels. And last but not least, we all know how tiring, how much hard work goes into creating and putting together a great campaign. So Canva also can help you work smarter, not harder. And we're going to take a look at that in greater detail later on. So now let's start with how to stay on brand. And this is super important when you're planning a campaign. I think it's super important to think of your campaign as simply an extension of your brand. And to make this clear, I'm going to take a bit of a detour and talk a little bit about what brand and branding actually mean. So most of the time people think a brand is just a logo, that branding is simply sticking your logo on everything that you do. But actually, if you think about Canva, the Canva logo is really a tiny part of our brand. Our brand is so much bigger than just a logo. So what is, a brand really? Well, a brand is the combination of four things: your purpose, the big why of your organization. Why does your nonprofit do what it does? Your values, what are the values that really drive you and drive your behavior? Your personality. If your nonprofit were a person, how would you describe them? And last but not least, all of these things, your purpose, your values, your personality, make you show up in the world in a very specific way. And this way, the way in which you show up in the world, creates impressions in people's heads. And so that perception is a super important part of your brand as well. And once you have your brand figured out, then it's a question of going from your brand to your brand identity. So it's a question of making all those values, the mission, the purpose, the personality of your nonprofit, making all of that visual. So your brand identity is a combination of four building blocks. We have the logo, of course, your color scheme, your fonts, and last but not least, your imagery. So anything that is visuals, illustrations, icons, all of these elements are super important parts of your brand identity. And I'd like to make this a little bit more concrete by giving you an example of a nonprofit that I think has really cracked, that brand and that branding. It's a British charity. It's called Macmillan Cancer Support. It's one of the largest charities in the UK, actually. I think it was founded back in 1911, so they have a very long history. And you can see that they have a very clear brand. That mission is to really empower everyone, particularly people affected by cancer, to live life as fully as they can. And they do this by providing emotional and financial support to cancer patients, but also their families and friends. And they have a very clear values, a very clear personality. You can see some of those values here. They believe in empathy, they believe in inspiring people, they believe in empowering people. And so all of these elements that make up their purpose and their brand are also then translated into a visual form, in there as part of that brand identity. So we can see, for example, that logo is very green. It has these very pleasing, kind of playful, soft, rounded lines. They have custom font, which is the same font that they use for that logo. They have this very bright color scheme, a very simple but fresh illustration style. So all of these visual elements are a simple manifestation of their brand. The brand identity is a visual manifestation of that brand. And you can see that they apply this brand identity incredibly consistently across everything that they do, from their reports all the way to the website, all the way to social media, merchandise, even buckets and lanyards, t-shirts, everything they do really speaks the same language. And their campaigns are also an extension of that brand. There is a very famous campaign called Brave the Shave. It's been running for a few years now. I think it started in 2015. And as you can see here, even if we don't have, the Macmillan Cancer Support logo, we can definitely just at a glance associate this campaign with the nonprofit. And that's because of the consistency with which they've actually applied that brand. And you may be wondering, okay, we understand what a brand is, why branding is so important, but why does it really matter? Why do we need to pay attention to this? And you should, because a strong brand does incredible things for your nonprofit. A strong brand makes you recognizable. And by being recognizable, you become more credible. And by being credible, people start trusting your nonprofit. And so that trust is what ultimately gets you people's support. This is how you can inspire people and trust them that by supporting you, they're doing the right thing. And research actually backs this up. It's been shown that branded donate pages actually raise 6 times more money than non-branded donate pages. So having a strong brand that gets to people's trust is incredibly, incredibly important. So the next question is, how can you actually use Canva to stay on brand for your campaign? Canva has a lot of incredible features, particularly our Canva Pro license gives you access to a set of incredible features, one of which is our brand kit. So what I'm going to do now is just play a video for you where you can actually see all the amazing things that you can do with a brand kit. A brand kit is simply a repository that helps you centralize all of those brand identity elements that we talked about just now. So your logo, your fonts, your colors, your imagery, and you can have all of that in one place and then simply apply it to everything that you create in Canva with just a couple of clicks. So let's see how that's done.
The best way to manage your nonprofit brand in Canva is by creating a brand kit. On the home page, click Brand Kit. Give your kit a name. Upload your logo in all its versions. Upload them all here like this. Next, create a color palette of your brand colors. For each color, add the hex code. This is a string of 6 digits that uniquely defines a color on the web. Create as many palettes as you need. Finally, select your official brand fonts and styles. If your brand fonts are not in the drop-down, upload them into Canva. And your brand kit's done. Time to apply it to your design. Let's start with a template. In the side panel, click More and then Styles. Notice your brand kit here. Click your brand fonts to apply them to existing text. Click your color palette to shuffle through color combinations. And have fun experimenting with designs, letting Canva do the hard work for you.
Fantastic. So this is just how simple creating a brand kit in Canva is. And actually, if you're going through a rebrand for your nonprofit, or you simply want to get started on getting all of those pieces of your brand identity together, we have an exercise that focuses just on this in our workbook. So you can grab your own copy just by going to this link. Let's move on to the next point of our presentation, which is about making our campaign work across multiple channels. You know, right now we live in a very visual world. We have plenty of channels across digital, across print, and experiential as well, which is particularly important if we're creating, for example, an event or a fundraiser as part of our campaign. So the key question here is, what channels do we want to be on? And that's really something that stems from how well you know your audience. We talked about that at the very beginning. Knowing where your audience is absolutely crucial in the thinking, in the planning stage of your campaign. And then once you know where your audience is, you need to simply choose your channels strategically and show up on those channels consistently by staying on brand. And as we've just seen, this is something that you can do incredibly easily using Canva. Just to go back to our example from Macmillan Cancer Support, you can see here that their Brave the Shave campaign really used multiple channels, all the way from banners and social media adverts, social media posts, all the way to swag, t-shirts, even GIFs and email signatures. And as you can see, this campaign really gels, it really comes together. Everything is speaking the same language. This is another example, another campaign, the 9/11 Day at Home campaign. And even without going into the details of the campaign, you can quickly see that everything that they've created as part of this campaign actually speaks the same language. There is a great level of consistency and cohesion here. So the question is, if we're working across all of these different channels, you know, print, digital, experiential, how can we actually do this without spending days and days and days, you know, just making sure that everything is applied consistently? Well, Canva helps you here as well. There is a great feature called Magic Resize, and it's really magic because using Magic Resize, you can easily adapt all of your content to different formats, different ratios with literally just one click. And this is what I'm going to show you now. We have, for example, here, we have an Instagram post and we want to convert it to another format. So here are all the formats that we can actually turn our Instagram post into. So by clicking on Resize, let's select, for example, Facebook post, click on Copy and Resize. Give Canva a couple of seconds, and there you go. Our Facebook post is ready for us to use. And if we want, sometimes we need to simply tweak the layout, maybe reposition a few elements, move things around a little bit, maybe reposition the logo. But there you go. In just one click, we've essentially transformed our Instagram post into a Facebook post. So you can do this with just one click using the magic resize feature. Isn't that amazing? Okay, and that leads us to the third point that I wanted to share with you today, how to work smarter, not harder, when you're putting together your campaign. Again, Canva has plenty of amazing features, but one in particular that I want to share with you today is how to use templates. Templates are incredibly useful, particularly if you're not the only person working on visual content in your nonprofit. Sometimes we need to share our material with other team members, copywriters, designers, contractors, other people that we may work with as part of that campaign. And things can get pretty messy. We can have a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and we all know how that feels. But Canva helps us get through that by simply creating templates in an easy and intuitive way. So let's see how that works. We have, again, another post, a call for volunteers post. All we need to do to create a template is simply publish it as a template. And once we do that, Canva generates a template link for us. And all we need to do is simply copy that link and share it with our team members. And this is going to allow them to edit anything they want in this template without actually changing the source file. So this is an incredibly helpful tool that lets you work collaboratively with other people, but at the same time, keep that consistency across everything that you do. And of course, as I said, Canva has a lot of amazing features to offer. You can use folders to stay organized. You can also schedule posts using our amazing content planner and track the analytics, see how well your posts are doing online as well. You can collaborate simultaneously and share feedback with your team members. And also you can create amazing video content seamlessly. So there are plenty of features for you to dig deep into. And with that, I'm actually going to move to the third and final part of today's session, which is all about sharing tools and resources for you and your nonprofit. So if you're tuning in just now, just know that we have a workbook that you can use to work through your campaign and also jot down your ideas. If you found any of this content helpful, you can also use it to just jot down your thoughts and go back to them at a later stage. But if you want to know more about design, if you want to up your design game and learn anything from graphic design to presentations and branding, then you should definitely check out our design school website. There are amazing courses, amazing videos to kickstart your creativity and really up your design game. We also have a very active nonprofit community on Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, you should definitely check out a nonprofits community group. And last but definitely not least, as we saw at the beginning of this session, if you're a nonprofit, social impact organization or health organization, you can apply for a Canva Pro for Nonprofit plan for free. So you should definitely go to canva.com/nonprofits and make the most of this amazing opportunity. And that pretty much is everything I've got to share with you today. It's been a pleasure to be with you guys. I hope that you've got value out of this session, that it was as fun for you as it was for us to put it together. We started with a bit of inspiration with the Palau Pledge campaign. So there's no better way to end this session than with some more inspiration. I'd like to share with you another incredible campaign that was created a couple of years ago. This time, I'd like to take you to Nauru, an island in Micronesia. And this campaign was really all about raising awareness about the situation of 100 refugee children that were detained on the island of Nauru. And this is another great example of how design and Canva can really help you make that change and mobilize people all over the world. So without further ado, let's get some more inspiration with this campaign. Thank you very much for joining, and stay tuned for the next session with Robin. It's all about setting a big vision for change. Thank you so much.
On a small Pacific island called Nauru, a humanitarian crisis had developed. The Australian government's policy of indefinite detention led to some 650 refugees, over 100 children, being detained on a tiny island. If we let the Australian public know what was happening, people would get involved, people would be forced to act. We were able to build a comprehensive brand kit in Canva that allowed the entire organisation and anyone around the world to pick up these designs and create something beautiful and something that matched perfectly with the campaign. So by setting up all of the graphics in Canva, we created an incredibly shareable set of assets that every ordinary Australian could pick up and use to become part of the movement. It's an incredibly powerful tool for nonprofits because it allows you to get every hand on deck creating graphics for your movement, and it allows you to become a truly democratic movement. It allows you to become truly grassroots and to allow everyone in the world to be a part of making change.
What a powerful session. Thank you so much, Arturo. Up next, we have Robin, who's our Head of Social Impact here at Canva, who will be talking about setting big vision goals. Over to you, Robin.
Thank you, Clayton. Hello and welcome, everyone. It's great to be here. Thank you so much for joining this session. Today, we're going to talk about how to set a big vision for change. And by the end of the session, you'll have a framework for how to set crazy big goals that are aligned with your vision to inspire action and lead to impact, with loads of tips and tricks on how to do all of this using Canva. To help you, we've created a fun workbook to accompany today's session. So if you'd like to practice what you've learned today or just jot down notes as we're going, log into Canva and type this link into your web browser, and it'll open up your very own copy of the workbook so that you can get hands-on in real time as we go through today's session. But before we get started, my name is Robin and I work on social impact at Canva. I'm in the foundation team where I focus on unlocking the best of Canva to help solve global challenges in the most impactful way possible. And this is core to Canva's what we call simple two-step plan, which is build one of the world's most valuable companies and use this as a force for good. And by being interested in the topic that we're discussing today and signing up to this talk, I already know that you're a change maker who's a big part of this two-step plan. And we all know how urgently we need people like you with big ambitions for impact in today's world. The world's never been so plagued by social, political, economic, and environmental problems. With climate change, countries are struggling to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees. We've had huge biodiversity loss, with the world losing 2/3 of its mammals, birds, fish, plants, and insects over the past 50 years. There's vast inequality where the richest 1% of the world owns a staggering 43%, almost half, of the world's wealth. And COVID has only made these global inequalities worse. And recent movements like Black Lives Matter have highlighted issues of structural racism and exclusion of minority groups. And these are just some of the big challenges that we're confronted with. These issues are global in scale, and the nonprofit sector, all of you, are making a real positive change for humanity on these issues. Canva has currently got over 150 nonprofits using our Canva Pro for Nonprofits plan. So if you're a nonprofit, a social impact, or a public health organisation, you can apply for a free Canva Pro license for your organisation. All you need to do is visit our website where you can see our eligibility guidelines and sign up via the application form there. That will give you access to our premium product for free to help you design for change. And that's exactly what we're here to talk about today, how you can set crazy big goals, make them happen, and then communicate impact towards these goals to help you achieve your vision for change. Now, it might seem silly that a goal-driven organisation is even a concept worth talking about. Surely everyone in an organisation is aligned towards a common goal. But as a lot of you, I'm sure, will know, and as an organisation scales and it expands across offices and even countries, getting teams to work towards the same vision isn't as easy as it sounds. In this section, I'm going to explain how we build a goal-driven culture at Canva. We use the planning framework based on mission, where the timeframe is years, goals with a timeframe of seasons, so we plan in 3-month blocks, and milestones with a timeframe of weeks. And all of this starts with having a vision, or a crazy big goal, as we like to call it. Canva's crazy big goal has always been to empower everyone to design. What's your crazy big goal for the problem that you're trying to solve? This is the time to envision, to tell the story of the future that you're trying to create. And the reason that we place so much emphasis on goals at Canva is that if you don't continually set goals to achieve, or figure out how to rally your team and your resources around your goals to achieve them, It can mean that all the hard work that you do isn't leading to impact at the end of the day. And none of us want this. At Canva, our big goals also have to be crazy. And in the words of our founder, Melanie Perkins, if I don't alternate between feeling like it's the inevitable future to feeling like it's too big and impossible, it's not big enough. If I don't feel small and inadequate before it, it's not big enough. If it scares, excites, and humbles me, if it makes me go on an emotional roller coaster, if it's going to take a lifetime to achieve and the talents of many, that's a goal worth tackling. So let's break down what a crazy big goal is at Canva. For us, it's a goal that's challenging, radical, aligned. It's got zany celebrations tied to it, and it's a bit YOLO. By challenging, we mean that it's going to bring us out of our comfort zone. By radical, we mean that it challenges conventional thinking. It's audacious, it's innovative, and it's progressive. An aligned goal is one that considers how it's going to affect other teams and their goals, and vice versa. And it also aligns with the overall company vision. And with zany celebrations, we identify how goal milestones will be recognized, how we'll acknowledge wins with memorable and quirky team events. And YOLO goals are goals that are bold in their approach. We know that not everything's achievable, but we're prepared to at least give it a crack. Because it really is true that you only grow as big as your goals. So let's take a look at Canva's crazy big goals. So many of you know Canva as a global success story today, but it hasn't always been this way. Our story started 10 years ago as a small yearbook design business in Perth. And this is on Australia's west coast, one of the most isolated cities in the world, and I'm actually from there. The problem that Melanie identified was that design was complicated, where people had to use expensive and complex tools to create designs. Her crazy big goal was to make this complex process simple and empower the whole world to express their creativity. In her very first pitch deck, she combined and simplified over 20 industries into a single page to show how she wanted to streamline them and make them accessible to the whole world. If you then fast forward 10 years, Canva is now a company with offices all over the world. We've got over 2,000 Canvanauts, millions of users, a crazy big valuation, and most importantly, a genuine commitment to do good by empowering nonprofits through our product, by joining Pledge 1% and committing to tackle some of the world's biggest problems. The question is, what happened between then and now? What is it that made it possible to turn Canva into such a big success story? It's all about breaking down big goals into smaller goals and actionable steps, moving from chaos to clarity, which is a concept that we talk about a lot at Canva. So what does it mean for you? How crazy is your goal? We've included an exercise on page 40 of the workbook that guides you through how to set a crazy big goal. So once you've got great goals, how do you make them happen? Let's start off by taking a look at why goals often fail. According to the University of Scranton, a whopping 92% of people who set New Year's goals never actually achieve them. And you can count me in that group for some of my previous New Year's resolutions. So why is this? Well, some of the key reasons that they identified were that people set too many goals, they've got a lack of understanding about the goal setting process and how to begin with the end in mind, and they don't have a plan for how to achieve their goals. So coming back to Canva again, we like to think of the ideal vision as both the macro and the micro. It's a huge vision that stretches all the way to the moon and is going to take decades to achieve. But then there are lots of small, tangible steps along the way. And I truly do believe that the devil is in the detail. And it's this lack of tangible, small steps where goals often fall down. So how do we go from vision to goals to milestones at Canva? Well, goals are baked into everything that we do, the fabric of how Canva operates. And we talk about these constantly in every forum, team meeting, and across our whole company. We've got foundational goals that we set each year for the entire company. And these goals apply to every single team and every individual at Canva. And an example of this might be increasing our revenue or our user numbers. Each team then breaks these big goals into seasonal goals that are specific to their area, their skills, and their talents. Teams break down these goals by going from crazy to SMART goals. SMART goals have been around since the 1980s, and I'm sure most of you have probably heard about these. It's a bit of an old school way of goal setting, and it stands for specific, where you ask yourself, what do I want to accomplish? Why is this goal important? Who's involved, and which resources or limits are involved? Is it measurable? Ask how you will know when it is accomplished. Is it achievable? Can you accomplish this goal? How realistic is the goal based on other factors, things like season goals, team goals, and your organization's mission and vision? Is your goal relevant? Does it seem worthwhile? Is now the right time? Does it match where your organization needs to go? And last but not least, is your goal time-bound? What's your time frame? Try to be as specific as possible by creating timeframes for each milestone that will take you towards your goal. So now we've covered crazy and smart goals, but how do we know if a goal is any good? Well, at Canva, we like to think that a good goal is one that is a critical step towards both the Canva company and the group's long-term mission. It's either a launch or a metric goal. It's short, succinct, and memorable. Where possible, it delivers value to our community, to all of you, and it occurs at a moment in time so that we can celebrate it. So once you've got a good goal, how do you communicate this effectively to your audience? At Canva, we capture our goals in what we call our company jigsaw. This is a centralized place that provides easy access to goals, to milestones, the best comms channels for each of them, owner information, and landing dates, and our entire company can access this. We use it to codify the answer to the three simple but critical questions: what teams are working on, how they're making progress, and how they're tracking progress. It's the single source of truth when looking for a goal being worked on, a bird's eye view for all upcoming and current projects. These seasonal goals from our jigsaw are then broken down into milestones with action plans that have clear steps, clear owners to create accountability, and clear deadlines. So the idea behind everything I've just been talking about is to get more and more granular at each step, moving from a fuzzy vision, the land of ideas where chaos reigns, to a tangible action plan, the land of information and certainty, where clarity is king. And I'll now demonstrate this by showing you how we've taken two goals at Canva from chaos to clarity. As you've heard today, our mission is empower everyone, everywhere to design. And one crazy big goal to help us achieve this is ensuring that our users can design in every language. We then broke this goal down into a set of concrete milestones. The first was launching just one additional language, which was Spanish. We then built up to 20, then 100 languages. While doing that, we also re-engineered our localization tooling to allow for as much automation and scale as possible in our product. We then covered off on the hard languages, ones that required a different approach, like writing from right to left. After that, we localized our template library and we added local design ingredients, things like photos, fonts, and illustrations. And most recently, we've been focusing on building a truly local experience, creating seamless localized UX, adding local payments and currencies, and adding market bespoke template content. The next example relates to our two-step plan. Step 2 in this plan is do the most good that we can. And one crazy big goal to help us achieve this is that every nonprofit in the world is using Canva to amplify their impact through design. The concrete seasonal milestones that we've broken this down into were first, localizing our nonprofit sign-up process into every language. We then expanded our eligibility criteria beyond only just registered nonprofits to include social impact and also public health orgs. We then created a suite of customized resources for nonprofits, things like social issues-based toolkits and templates, SDG templates and media curations, and crisis toolkits. And you can find all of these on our nonprofit product landing page if you're interested in using them. And right now we're focusing on spreading the word about this free offer to nonprofits in every corner of the globe, so that soon every nonprofit really will be using Canva to reach their incredible goals. So now it's your turn to go from chaos to clarity and ensure that your crazy goal is also a smart goal. And you can do this by stepping through the questions that we've included on page 41 of your workbook. Now we're into our final section, where we're going to focus on how to leverage Canva to make your goals visual and clearly communicate impact towards your goals. At Canva, we really believe that graphic design and visual communication can play a huge role in bringing about change. This is because it helps you create a shared vision around your goals internally. It helps you track progress towards these goals and then communicate the outcomes of your goals your impact. And by doing this and communicating your impact really clearly, you bring it to life for others, which is so important. This then helps you do more good and inspire more people to take action and join your cause. So, how does it apply to your nonprofit? Well, can you imagine donating money to a cause that you believed in and never hearing back from the nonprofit org? It would leave a pretty bitter feeling, wouldn't it? In fact, research has shown that 18% of donors leave or stop donating due to poor communication, 8% because they don't know how their money is being used, and 36% found that other nonprofits would be more deserving of their donations. So why is it so difficult to communicate impact well? Communication is where a lot of nonprofits fall short. It's hard to communicate when we're so deep in our own work. And it can also be difficult to get perspective when you're feeling really short on time and resource constrained. And on top of all of this, all of you are working on solving some of the world's most complex problems. And it's just hard and tricky to communicate impact towards solving these problems simply. The American screenwriter and director Stephen Gaghan describes this by saying, "It's tricky to ask a filmmaker to explain his own work. Usually we're the least qualified to make sense of what we've done because of the tunnel vision that's required to create anything over 4 years." So how do we do this at Canva? We create loads and loads of vision and goal decks, which always contain visuals. These include things like prototypes, storyboards, and wireframes to show product flows and bring these to life. Sometimes we even pull out goals from these decks and stick them on our walls around the offices. And we've even painted them before. And we go to these great lengths because we believe that the visual is powerful. If you can see it, you can be it, and you can build it. We also host what we call regular check-ins called show and tells, where teams within each group meet on a weekly or sometimes fortnightly basis, and they showcase their progress towards their goals and milestones. Again, in a visual way, often using Canva presentations or other Canva templates. And we always celebrate our goals. Season openers are a Canva tradition. These are celebrations that we hold every 3 months to celebrate our team's achievements, to share impact stories, and to set crazy big goals for the coming season. They're a really good way for our team to connect, to recognize each other's hard work, re-energize for the coming season, and just have some fun. We always have a theme and costumes, and there's a lot of fierce competition for the best dressed prize. And one of the really important things they do is also help hold each other accountable. Once you've set public goals for the coming season in front of your teammates, you need to work really hard to meet these goals and launches before the next season opener. So now coming back to how you can communicate your purpose clearly, it all starts with a clear mission. Why do you exist? Who do you serve? And how do you serve them? I encourage you to make sure that this is less than 20 words and that it's easy to understand by avoiding jargon that's particular to your sector or your industry, which so many of us tend to do. A good example of a really clear nonprofit mission is Charity Water. Their mission is help bring clean and safe water to every person on the planet. The next step is breaking down this purpose into concrete goals. And remember to go back to the checklist that we went through earlier on what makes a good goal. Charity Water has broken down its mission into a clear goal: ensure that 785 million people who currently lack basic access to clean and safe drinking water can access this wherever they are. And they've established a clear approach to achieve this goal through planning, implementation, and post-implementation. And finally, communicate your impact towards your vision and your goals clearly. Charity Water summarizes their impact at a glance by showing data on the number of water projects that they've funded, how many people they've served, and how many countries they're operating in. You can then dive deeper into their impact by reading qualitative community stories of impact and searching for projects and partners in their interactive impact map. And I think this is great because it allows the audience to choose their own adventure and hone in on the impact that they care most about. Canva has great infographic and chart tools that are really useful when it comes to visualizing your impact. Show, don't tell by using these tools to bring numbers to life and visualize things like percentages and progress towards your goals. You can show how big the problem is that you're trying to solve, how much impact a donation will make towards solving this problem, and how many individuals have been helped by your donors' dollars. So the key takeaways from this communication section are: use simple language, avoid jargon, and keep it short. Don't make your audience work to decipher your impact. Make this really obvious. Identify your progress towards your goals, and wherever possible, use visuals to communicate quantitative data. And I would always encourage you to use stories to complement your quantitative data and bring the human element back into your impact reporting. So we've now come to the end of today's session, and we've covered quite a lot of material on how to set crazy big goals, how to make them happen through smaller goals and milestones, and then how to clearly communicate progress towards these goals to demonstrate impact and inspire more action, all using Canva so that you can become a fully visual organization. And just a reminder that this is 100% free for all nonprofits. So here's a quick video to tell you a bit more about our nonprofit product if you're not already using it.
As a nonprofit, you know making an impact is hard work. From communicating your mission to managing projects, people, and files, you're always on too many tools and even tighter budgets. But what if doing good also felt good? What if you could create beautiful designs and create change with just one tool and completely free of charge? If you're a registered nonprofit, social impact organization, or health organization, you can apply for Canva Pro for nonprofits and give access to up to 10 team members at no cost at all. Let's discover what you can achieve with Canva Pro for nonprofits. Create any type of visual content, social media posts, videos, presentations, websites. If you can think of it, you can create it in Canva. Start inspired with our professionally designed templates to kickstart your creativity. Work efficiently and resize designs with just one click. Manage and apply your brand, keeping all your designs consistent. And that's not the half of it. Collaborate with team members, organize files and folders, and schedule content publication, all without ever leaving Canva. Ready to unlock the full power of Canva Pro for your nonprofit? Apply today and make a real impact with Canva Pro for nonprofit.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of our session. Thank you so much for coming along and for your time today. And I'm incredibly excited to see the crazy big goals that you set and bring to life in the years ahead.
Thank you so much, Arturo and Robin. Those sessions were truly so inspiring. I really especially loved seeing those amazing examples of campaigns, which have made such a huge impact. But now, Robin, we have a couple questions for you.
That's right, we do, Robin. This one's from Katie, and they've asked, I work at a not-for-profit, and I have to say our mission and goals need an update. What's the best way to suggest this to the team in a positive way?
That's a good question. I'd probably advise that in your next team catch-up, Katie, you could use the workbook that we've had today and use it as a tool to suggest testing your mission and your goals against the exercises that we've got in there and see if they pass our test of make complex things simple. You could ask, is your mission less than 20 words? Can anyone on the street understand this? Are your goals crazy enough? Do they pass the SMART goals test? And it's a way to kind of gamify it for your team and give everyone a chance to share their ideas.
Awesome. Thanks, Robin. We have another question for you from Tim. I love the idea of Zanny team celebrations. What's the zaniest you've seen?
That's a great question. So I've been at Canva for a while now, and I've seen a lot of celebrations, but the zaniest one is about a haircut. So Dave Herndon is our epic Chief Technology Officer at Canva. And when he joined Canva, he made a commitment to not cut his hair until we launched simultaneous collaboration in our product. So this took quite a few years, 8 years to be precise. So after loads of effort and many world firsts, Dave had a very long-awaited haircut. And Melanie, our CEO, performed the honors of being the hairdresser.
I have another question from Jen here, who has asked, the nonprofit I work for seems to really struggle with communicating or even capturing our impact. Do you have any advice for them?
Once you're clear on your mission, your goals, and your milestones, it's then a lot easier to communicate your impact in terms of the change you're trying to achieve. So go back and do that work, I think, then the rest of it will kind of fall into place. And in terms of communicating impact, I'd recommend including both quantitative and qualitative impact in your comms. So our infographic and our charts tools are perfect for quant impact. They help you easily visualize data and metrics. And then things like our talking presentations, they're really useful for capturing qualitative stories of impact and humanizing and personalizing your reporting.
Amazing. That's great advice. Next question from Brian. Can you dream too big with nonprofit goals? What's the limit you should keep in mind?
I think you probably know the answer I'm going to give after that presentation, but definitely not. We've got huge and complex problems in today's world, and we urgently need people to tackle these as a collective of change makers. So you only grow as big as your dreams. If you don't dream it, you certainly won't build it. So this is where our concept of crazy comes in. But of course, you also need to be realistic. So take your crazy big goals and then also ensure that they're smart goals.
Fantastic. And the last question we have for you today, Robin, is from Bronwyn. I feel the not-for-profit I'm involved with spends too long debating its mission. Is it sometimes good to just go with what you have and perfect through doing?
I am going to say yes. I'm a very big believer in learning by doing and flailing. 99% of the time, you're not going to get it right the first time. But to me, a growth mindset is a lot more important than a perfect mission on a piece of paper. I also think perfect doesn't exist. All of you are solving complex, ever-evolving problems. So what's right today might not be what's needed in 3, 6, or 12 months' time. One of our values at Canva is set crazy big goals, but then make these happen. So goal setting is only useful if you actually make them happen and achieve them. So my challenge to all of you is think about the crazy big goals that you can make happen after today.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Robin. And I love that challenge for the crowd. We really appreciate your sessions. So thoughtful and insightful.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure being one of your MCs today. Mā te wā. I'm Clayton Cribben.
And I'm Julie Floater. Happy creating.